Apologies for the wait. I was loading up the description with all this fun information and links and whatnot. So, um, anyway, so didn't plan on really doing a live, but this is more just kind of fun information. For anybody that's into this kind of thing. So today in history, what's up, QT? January 28th, 1916, is when Supreme Court Justice Louis D. Brandeis was nominated for Supreme Court of the United States. All Supreme Court justices are known as associate justices. So he was an associate justice for the United States Supreme Court for 23 years, from 1916 to 1939. Freedom to Film, what's up? He has, to date, I believe, best I can tell, Kavanaugh and Ruth Bader Ginsburg's nominations were less than his 125 days. He ends up being confirmed on, I believe, June 1st of 1916, but he has the longest confirmation, or from nomination to confirmation time in history, from best I can tell. 125 days. And there was essentially a lot of controversy when he was nominated. He is the first Jewish Supreme Court justice, and he, in his time, was considered a radical, specifically called a radical in the New York Times as well as the Wall Street Journal, both of which over time end up switching their stance on him quite a bit, especially once he becomes a Supreme Court justice. Starts deciding cases like New York Times versus United States, which, if you're watching this channel, you're likely familiar with, as well as various other First Amendment cases that sort of were stepping stones to the protections that we have now. So that's, one of the reasons why I personally, this is one of my favorite people in history. I have a lot of respect for this individual. Even though this was in the early 1900s, so even the best of men were somewhat misinformed and misled on other things. But all in all, he, his work has been used to champion the voice of the people ever since, basically ever since he became a lawyer. So let's get into all this fun facts. Dangerous Dan, what's up? So, Louis Dembitz, Dembitz, Brandeis, was born on November 13th, 1856 in Louisville, Kentucky. The University of Louisville, Brandeis School of Law, is obviously named after him. I believe, one second here. Yeah, it's the oldest law school in Kentucky, and it's the 5th oldest in the United States of America that has been in continuous operation. It's founded in 1846. I believe their law department ends up named after him in 1997. 82,000 square foot facility, and about half of it is law library. They have alumni spanning 49 states, 6 countries. They do what's known as a Lawlapalooza, L-A-L, La Palooza, every year, which is an annual battle of the bands put on by the Louisville Bar Association and the University of Louisville. married to Alice Goldmark. His wife, she ends up being a very, very big part of his life. Ends up being, almost as much a part of these cases as he is, especially in his early works, when he's writing and whatnot. His uncle is actually Lewis, Lewis, as opposed to Louis. Actually wrote the Kentucky Jurisprudence, which is a sort of landmark treatise in 1890. So, he grew up watching his uncle, who's very into civic responsibility and such, and instilled that passion in him. And he grew to become what's known as the people's lawyer in Boston. He was known for turning down attorney's fees. Essentially, some historians basically consider him to be the origin of pro bono work for attorneys. At the time, it was crazy. He was considered a radical. There something not quite right with that guy. He won't take the money, and it's because he felt that if he wasn't restricted with the payment situation, which kind of changes the relationship that you have with a person, versus if you are arguing in the name of charity because of the larger social and public concern that you can see in a case. He's also as far as Harvard law goes, he has the highest academic record of any graduate to this day. Somebody just, yeah. All right, so kind of going off these notes here, as well as a bunch of information that I've got, but give me a second here, because I'm trying to figure out exactly how I want to go in order with this. Some of my quotes here aren't exactly in the order I wanted to do them in. All right, so one of the main reasons that I wanted to touch on this is his life's work, his entire legacy is basically what many of us know to be as normal and routine. So clearly established rights obviously weren't always clearly established, and some of the things that occurred in this man's life helped to do that, essentially. One of which is known as the Brandy Brief. This is a 113-page, essentially, motion filed, or a brief filed in 1907, and it was the first of its kind because it didn't quote just legal precedent. It quoted social, medical, economic theory, expert testimony, a wealth of information to persuade the tribunal to rule in his favor, not just the law. He filled in the gaps that the law did not cover and created an entirely new way to argue out a case. Everything that lawyers essentially do now is affected by this 113-page brief that he wrote in 1907 to this day. I've read countless, legal arguments where they quote way more than cases, way more than statutes. Psychological journals. Look into judicial notice and see what all essentially you can, have a judge acknowledge. The there's all kinds of stuff out there now that you can put into a legal argument, and this sort of paved the way for that. This was the pilot hole, so to speak. Anyway, the case for that is Mueller v. Oregon, which a lot of people probably aren't as familiar with, but Brown v. Board of Education that the NAACP is involved with, more people are familiar with that. Brown v. Education basically, reinforces / builds off of Mueller v. Oregon. So, let's get into some of my favorite quotes of all times. The reason that I like Justice Brandeis so much is his position on things resonates with myself and with a lot of the individuals that I interact with in the First Amendment advocate community, because that's essentially what we all are, as advocates for the First Amendment. And the definition of the word advocate is someone who pleads for another, essentially. Advocacy is in the name of a greater good or someone other than yourself. It's not typically a personal endeavor. The people's lawyer was obviously an advocate for things like civic responsibility, democracy, social justice, freedom of speech, the right to privacy, wealth in the hands of the people, a lot of core American values as we know them today. So, Justice Brandeis believed that the greatest menace to freedom is an inert people, that public discussion is a political duty, and that this should be a fundamental principle of the American government. So the greatest freedom, or the greatest menace to freedom, is an inert people, the uninvolved populace of our fine society is the greatest threat to our freedom. Public discussion is a political duty, okay? It's your responsibility to be involved in politics. We here in America, we're so quick to say, I don't discuss politics or religion, but politics should be discussed openly, honestly, and frequently. Otherwise, what's the point of having a democratic republic at all? Justice Brandeis believed that freedom to think as you will and speak as you think are means indispensable to the discovery and spread of political truth. Okay? Behind everyone's argument is someone's ignorance. Where's this? This is probably my all-time favorite quote. It's usually misquoted as there's no job more important than there's no political office more important than that of the private citizen. And it's usually misquoted something along those lines. There's no office more important, there's no political office more important than that of the private citizen. And it's usually misquoted as to being to Olmsted, which is a case that he's famous, he's known for his dissent in. However, the quote actually comes from a statement made to a reporter in the Boston Record, April 14th, 1903, and it's What I have desired to do is make the people of Boston realize that the most important office, and the one which all of us can and should fill, is that of private citizen. The duties of the office of private citizen cannot, under a republican form of government, be neglected without serious injury to the public. Okay? So his entire life's work, this man's goal in his life, was to make his community understand that the most important thing they could do was to be involved in politics as a citizen, not as a candidate for office, but as a normal person, a normal, informed member of the public. The duties, things you should or feel obligated to do of the office of private citizen cannot, under republican form of government, be neglected, as they are now, when we make simple statements such as, "I don't discuss religion or politics," without serious injury to the public. You don't use it, you lose it. For years, we have refused to discuss politics out of discomfort. We don't want to stir the pot, make our neighbors, friends, family, other people, we try to avoid this confrontation. It's like an elephant in the room. However, we've made this such a back burner kind of a right that it's almost non-existent. Political speech can get you arrested again. It's almost everything that was fought for is almost completely undone because we've become so lackadaisical with our duties. Anyway, this is not a Brandy quote. However, it's in a biography. Obviously, another fan. And she says, or it's actually his daughter, Elizabeth Brandeis Raushenbush, as told to biographer Melvin I. Urofsky in Louis D. Brandy, A Life, 2009, page 130. Again, all these are in the description. Anyway, so she says, go down to City Hall and see what is on the agenda for the next council meeting. Garbage collection, water supply, it doesn't matter which one. Then go and learn everything you can about it. Read past reports, talk to people, learn the topic until you know it as well as anyone. Then, when you get up to speak or to make a suggestion for change, your voice will be heard because you are knowledgeable. That is how reform works. It goes hand in hand with no law, written or unwritten, can be understood without a full knowledge of the facts out of which it arises and to which it is to be applied. That's from Brandy's Living Law, 10 Illinois Law Review, 461, 467, 1915 through 1916. Justice Brandy believed that constitutional rights should not be frittered away by arguments so technical and unsubstantial. That's from Milwaukee Social Democratic Publishing Company v. Burleson, 255 U.S. 407, 431. It's from 1921. Full and free exercise of this right by the citizen is ordinarily also his duty, for its exercise is more important to the nation than it is to himself. Like the course of the heavenly bodies, harmony in national life is a resultant of the struggle between contending forces. In frank expression of conflicting opinion lies the greatest promise of wisdom in governmental action, and in suppression lies ordinarily the greatest peril. That's from his dissent in Gilbert v. Minnesota, 254 U.S. 325, 338. It's from 1920. Another one of my favorites. This is from his dissent in Bordeaux v. McDowell, 256 U.S. 465, 477, 1921. At the foundation of our civil liberty lies the principle which denies to government officials an exceptional position before the law, and which subjects them to the same rules of conduct that are commands to the citizen. I'm going to read that again. At the foundation of our civil liberty lies the principle which denies to government officials an exceptional position before the law. At the foundation of our civil liberties lies the principle that government agents are not special. They are subject to the same rules of conduct that are commanded to the citizen. Another dissent in Olmsted v. United States. The makers of our Constitution undertook to secure conditions favorable to the pursuit of happiness. They recognized the significance of man's spiritual nature, of his feelings, and of his intellect. They knew that only a part of the pain, pleasure, and satisfactions of life are to be found in material things. They sought to protect Americans in their beliefs, their thoughts, and their emotions, and their sensations. They conferred, our founding fathers, they conferred, as against the government, the right to be let alone, the most comprehensive of rights, and the most valued by civilized men. The right to be let alone. All right, one second here. I'm going to take a quick breather and check this chat. Okay. Yes, Dan. You kind of got me thinking about this too. I was debating whether or not I was going to even do this one, but after our conversation, I was like, oh man, it's a perfect day for it. You guys are lucky I don't do 125 days of this. Clueless beekeeping. I have thought about it. I have. Take a wild guess which law school I would apply to, but to be perfectly honest, I would want to do environmental law. It just seems people are great, but the planet's even better. And if I was gonna try to pursue this for a degree or something, I would probably pursue environmental law. I don't necessarily know if I would, and I don't know nearly as much about it at all. Barely anything. However, like I said, it's people are great, but I enjoy animals and trees and bodies of water much more than the company of the average person. And if I was gonna wield this as a weapon for something else, if I was going to advocate, I would likely want to be for the environment, nature, all the things that I'm hoping to be around with, when my kids are grown up and have their own kids. Who knows? We humans are we're a fickle bunch. Who knows how long we will let the planet live? We're just drilling holes all over the surface of it, digging up whatever we can to make the new this, that, and the other. Only a matter of time before we get to the center of it. Anyway, let's get back into this. You can do some civil rights law. Who knows? Yeah, seems to be my path, whether I want it to be or not. I do get lost in this stuff, and I can read it for hours, days, if I had time. Just it never really gets old. I don't know if I've ever truly experienced burnout reading about the First Amendment and such. Anyway, here's another great one. Only through participation by the many in the responsibilities and determinations of business can Americans secure the moral and intellectual development which is essential to the maintenance of liberty. So only through participation by the many in their responsibilities and determinations of business can Americans secure the moral and intellectual development which is essential to the maintenance of liberty. Now, it seems very simple, but it's not. We need everyone to feel that internal desire to want to go to city council meetings, to want to be involved, to request records and reports and ask questions and hold their feet to the fire. And this shouldn't be. The average person, I get it. They're worked to death. They're busy as shit. They don't have time to do all of these things. Who has time to babysit all these assholes that you get and you elect into office? You have time. Most people actually have time to go and spend an hour at a city council meeting. Hour and a half. Even on a long one that's 2 hours. That's a movie. You know what I mean? Your average city council, common council, county council, whatever you want to call it, most of these boards, commissions, and whatnot, they meet every 2 weeks, once a month. Most of them don't meet even weekly. Bi-weekly seems to be fairly regular. Then you have some other ones that meet, once a month. Some meet as needed. It's pretty contingent on what business they got. They might not meet for 6 months, then they might meet, 2 or 3 times in a couple of months. It just depends. But the point is most people have time to actually participate in their government. They just don't want to. Most people would rather fuck off and waste time and, Netflix and chill. And I'm not talking about in the good way. It's nothing for, people to utilize their downtime to relax and to sort of want to get away from it all and disassociate from the state of the world and how far we've let things come. But the reality is it's only through participation by the many in the responsibilities and determinations of business can Americans secure the moral and intellectual development. Moral and intellectual development. That's smart and ethical development. Like, we seem to have a bunch of dumbasses who only care about themselves in charge of government. That's our fault, because we have abandoned our responsibilities as private citizens to be involved, to critique them, to utilize your rights. And that's the thing, is with rights come responsibilities. You have the right to freedom of speech. And the number one thing that protects it is political expression. It's a shame to not utilize that right for the number one reason that it was intended to. It's like using a hammer for everything but a nail. It's ridiculous. Your right to freedom of speech is protected so that you can be as involved with critiquing your government as possible. I mean, caustic, vehement speech, rudeness. Your First Amendment right is literally, over the course of several great men and women's lifetimes, expanded upon through these laws, and a lot of these foundations, these cases from radicals that wanted to protect people's right to participate in their democratic republic government. It's a shame to just waste it with I don't discuss politics, or I don't have time for that. They have time. They are making all the time in the world to raise your taxes, to utilize them for boondoggle projects and things of that nature. Your government has time. They have more than enough time and resources. And the reason for that is because you were providing it to them. You're the money bags here. They're not utilizing their own money. They're using your money, the public, because they work for you. Anyway, so it's your responsibility as their employer, their boss, to do more than just tell them, hey, you work for me, public servant. No. You're in a leadership position as a private citizen over the governmental agent. The Supreme Court basically says that you're expected to treat them like they have no clue what they're doing and they're always acting outside the bounds of their authority. Treat them like they're a rookie employee, essentially, has no idea what they're doing, and you have to follow them around and teach them how to do their job. That's exactly the way it is. It's your responsibility as a private citizen to educate yourself, to be informed, to want to know what's going on, to have that desire to be informed, so that you can speak from a knowledgeable position and then have your voice heard through participation by the many. Moral and intellectual development, essential to the maintenance of liberty. Don't just enjoy your freedom to come home from work and sit down and watch Netflix, because you can do that every night of the week. Enjoy your freedom to participate in your government. Enjoy your freedom to critique your government. Because, they're not always getting it right. You know what I mean? They could use, they could stand to hear from you. They could stand to hear what you think about what they're doing. But you got to be informed on what's going on, and you got to be educated enough about the topic to go in here and be taken seriously. So that requires your time as well. And that's the thing, is as private citizens, we just want our rights. We just want our rights to do things, but we don't want the responsibilities that come with rights. And in order to have a truly free country, we have to exercise those responsibilities. Self-government, by the people, for the people. Otherwise, the government's going to run the government. And nobody's a fan of that. Nobody's a fan of the government actually running the government. We all want to be involved. We just get shut out. It's because you got to be informed about what's going on. And that's simply a matter of wanting to be informed. If you can want to know what's happening in this season's episodes of whatever show, or if you want to know what's going on with the scoreboard of these two football games, you can want to know what's going on with your city council, your redevelopment commission, the police merit commission, the community corrections advisory board. there's probably a couple dozen different boards and commissions that are having meetings, and they're deciding what to do with your money, what to do in your community. And you have the right to be involved, should you exercise it. Should you be responsible enough to go in here and have your rights taken seriously. Anyway, let me check this chat here. Give me I'm gonna grab me a little bit of water real quick. Just real quick before I forget, in the chat, there's a few more links. The right to privacy, there's a link to where you can read that. The opportunity in the law, that's a great read as well. I'm just going to run through a lot of these real quick, not get too in depth. I'm trying to keep this video somewhat short. The crime of economic radicalism, criminal syndicalism, laws, and the industrial workers of the world. This essentially gives a good bit of information about how People v. Ruthenberg and Whitney v. California. There doesn't actually end up being a ruling in People v. Ruthenberg because he died before the court issued the order. So the dissent opinion from that, Brandy ends up basically utilizing a lot of that to concur in Whitney v. California. And this was essentially, a lot of this is related to, like I said, it's People v. Ruthenberger is 1924, and Whitney v. California is 1927. And this is, amidst a lot of anti-communism rhetoric. This is when there's a lot of pushback against the wobblies, the industrial workers of the world, which is, the union of all unions, and a lot of this, gets into, a lot of this freedom of speech law develops because of anti-communist efforts to censor speech, and all that fun stuff. So, like I said, I put some links in the description. Great reads. If you get some time, I love history, especially of the law and stuff myself. So it's fascinating stuff if you see how it all connects over time. It's kind of like time traveling. Then there's another one, Vincent Blassi's The First Amendment and the Ideal of Civic Courage, the Brandy opinion in Whitney v. California. It goes a little more in depth. All right. What's up there, M-Star Media? Jessica. Hi, Nancy. Live Oak, Florida, huh? Fair shake. Anyway, so I'm all over the place, but just fascinating, towering legal figure in history. You really, if you study enough First Amendment, based material, eventually you're going to lead yourself to Justice Brandy. Even some of the more commonly known stuff, like most people familiar with New York Times versus United States, but that case quotes Near v. Minnesota, which is like from like 2023, 1925, 23, 25, 1923, 1925, I think 25. And that's essentially where prior restraint, or as it was called then, previous restraint, that's where that doctrine is actually developed. And it's obviously a Brandy opinion. Very fascinating individual as far as history goes. And if you there's all kinds of stuff. The dude wrote so much stuff. I can't even do it justice. I feel like a kid trying to prepare for a book report. There's so much, just a wealth of great reading material produced by the man. There's a book called Other People's Money, which, he's very anti-bankers having all this money and the people, always being poor. He predicted the 1929 stock market crash. Just a wealth of information on different topics, but specifically the private citizen's responsibility to engage in their civic duties so that American society has a control over its government and not the other way around. There's an expression that the people should not be afraid of their government, the government should be afraid of their people. But in reality, the people should not be informed by their government. The government should be informed by the people. Okay? These people treat you like you don't know what you're talking about when you go in here, and it's because they have their own language. That's why it's very important to get as involved and educated as you can. You have to be taken seriously, and you have to force it. You're going to have to prove that you know what you're talking about, and you're going to have to be aggressive with it in order to speak. This is the kind of a situation where in politics today we have become so disassociated with our, I don't want to talk about politics or religion, that we're almost not welcome. And most people that are interested in this know, if you have a YouTube channel and you videotape, you are not welcome. They don't want you to be involved in your government at this point, and they treat you like you're a bother because they are conditioned essentially in the same sense that you are. The same way that you are conditioned, not everybody, but most of us as an American society as a whole, we are conditioned to believe that if we go and ask for public records or we speak our piece, if we hold our governmental employees truly accountable, we're just bothering these hard-working public servants who, oh my gosh, they're just working so hard all day long and blah 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 blah. And no, they're typically not. Working for the government has essentially been a joke my entire life. I'm gonna get me a government job, lay around and do nothing. We've accepted this as normal, and they've accepted it as well. We've accepted that we're bothering these these pre-retirees while they just perform all these public services, which is another word for spending your own money for you. You're not bothering them. They've got your money. It's okay to ask what they're doing with it. It's okay to ask if they're doing anything at all. But we as a society have been led to believe that you're bothering these fine public officials, and these fine public officials believe that you are bothering them. So you start out sort of behind the eight ball, and your government typically assumes that, hell, if you're 40 or something, 50 years old, and this is your first time showing up to a meeting, if this is the first time they've seen you, you probably don't know what's going on. And they feel more than entitled to treat you like that. So again, it's all about being informed, having that desire to be informed so that you can participate. Essentially, your goal here is you realize that there's no seat at the table for you. So you're going to pull up a chair. Bottom line, if you want a seat at the table, you have to pull up a chair. So go get your chair. Develop that passion of civic engagement. It's a dying thing. I might as well be telling you to do fencing or something, some sort of lost skill set. Civic engagement is it's like a thing that, who's got time for that? We all should have time. Most people think they don't, but they do. It's just a matter of prioritizing, utilizing your response, utilizing your rights to fulfill your responsibilities. It's almost circular how that works. Anyway, like I said, I was going to try to keep this relatively short. Thank you everyone for joining. Thanks Cindy for modding. I'll probably get up out of here. Doc Holiday. Yeah, you're just going to keep repeating the same comment over like 5 years. I think it's funny. I would actually, now that you're here on the live, are you still here? It looks like about 3 minutes ago. What did you want me to do exactly? I love how you're always like, it seems like you wanted me to attack this female police officer or what? Because that's a ridiculous notion. But it kind of seems like that's what you're always hinting at. And I'm just wondering if that's exactly what you're saying, because, then it becomes pretty obvious that you're on bullshit. So your comment then loses all validity. Funny how that works. So, anyway, it's what happened. It's on video. Right. So, again, was I supposed to attack this? I mean, I guess she's a big girl, and she looks a little bit like a dude, but, I mean, what did you want me to do? Like, fight her? I don't understand. He seemed to be pretty hell-bent on it, though. It's pretty hilarious. Wobbly boost. Lori, good evening. Exactly, Fair Shake. Make time. Make time. Make time. I mean, I get it. I totally get it. It's hard. I got 2 kids, all kinds of responsibilities and stuff. And I'm always trying to take on more. Excuse me. I just started a new class. Looking into some sort of like part-time kind of thing that we can not, lose our shirts with daycare. Anyway, but yeah, it's you got to make time. Even when I was doing 60 hours a week, I was still trying to find time to go down and pull a few public records or critique a governmental decision. But you have to make time. And I get it. We live in this techno entertainment based kind of reality at this point, to where everyone has a phone in their hand. At any point in time, you can just scroll away and lose minutes, hours, days. I mean, I can't lie. Right now, I'm on a YouTube channel. You're currently, you know, watching me talk as opposed to reading the stuff I'm telling you. So I get it. We as a people, it's things are pretty bad in America right now. Um, if you get to really examining the state of things, it's really difficult to be hopeful. Um, you know, who knows what tomorrow holds? That's every day now. It's we're playing the slot machines of what craziness is going to unfold on the news today. And it's been that way for a while now. So it's really easy to want to sort of zone out, not deal with life, not deal with reality, politics. And right now, 2021, during a pandemic and all this crazy stuff, who wants to even think about dealing with all that nonsense? Now is when it's more important than ever. Now is when it's more important than ever. Um, we're fresh off of an election, eh, not just federally, which is the politics that most people focus on, which affect everyone, a great deal, but in my opinion, not nearly as much as your local politics. Um, I've never seen the president, and I've never even seen, a cabinet member in the city of LaPorte, but the people that I do see are the ones that make the decisions based upon the community that I live in, and how it affects things and what gets money allocated towards it. Generally my quality of life is affected more so by the people that meet every 2 weeks downtown, um, more so than you know who we put into the musical chair every 4 years. So people, civic engagement, this is where it's most important, where it's the most valuable. This is where you're going to get the most bang for your buck, is in your local community. um, the your neighbors and you can go downtown and affect change. This is completely realistic. You can sign a petition on the internet and think that the president's going to write some executive order that's just going to change how things work in your neighborhood, but it's not. You and your community are going to change the way things work out for you and your community. you know so civic engagement, the where you're going to get the most bang for your buck is in your local political environment. This is where it's most important to exercise your responsibilities, um, as a political or politically informed, knowledgeable citizen, so that you can be taken seriously, and then you are in control of your government, not your government in control of you. Because information is power, and power is where control comes from. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and check this real quick. I do not have any word filters on that I'm aware of. Dangerous Dan, you have a good night. Convenience is what we tend to gravitate towards. Yes, it is. It's easy to want to take the short path. Sometimes it's a lot easier to do things that are convenient, but only for a little while. Eventually, convenience catches up, and you know, you can jerry rig things so many times in convenience, but eventually you're gonna need some serious maintenance on whatever that is. So both zone out of the parasite-led world 70%, 30% into learning the latest tricks of the tiny group of gutless cowards that run every institution on Earth through weaponized stupidity. Weaponized stupidity. I like that. I like that. Jesus, that's about, yeah, that's perfect, man. It's really what it is at this point. Now, is it their stupidity or ours? Either way, it's weaponized against us. Sixth Estate. What's up? Yeah, I'm just wrapping up here, but I might hang out for a little bit. That was in England. A queen, huh? Words of Russell Brand. And she's a little old lady with a funny hat. Not much for kings, queens, none of that. You know, just seems like a bygone era. You know, whether it's a different country or not. It's a ridiculous notion. No more ridiculous than a president, I suppose. But in my opinion, I don't understand how one person can run a show this big. To be honest, I think we should have a full panel of president. You know, the office of president should be like a dozen people. You know what I mean? A jury is 12. You know, let one guy be president? That's ridiculous. Like, you know, it takes 12 people to decide if this guy that crashed into a building and had a bunch of bottles roll out of his car was driving drunk. You know, let one guy run the whole country? That's, yeah. Yeah, I can believe that it's more for show. Yeah, it's we do love our symbolism, you know, bread and circuses and all that. Yep, TV is pretty much the most genocidal weapon in history. And that's, I mean, don't get me wrong, I got a television. I try not to watch it too much at all. I use it simply to amplify the size of things that I watch, you know, on my phone, basically. And, you know, we've got Netflix and Hulu and a few other things, but, you know, there's some great, like, documentaries and stuff, but I'm a reader myself. I would rather read over. You know, I watch. Excuse me. I watch a good bit of videos on YouTube when I can. Try to support your guys' channels as well. You know, and various others. I'm, you know, big fan of a few different channels. So try to, if anything, watch as a support kind of thing. Even when I'm not, you know, let's say I go smoke a cigarette, I'll try to, you know, if somebody's live, I'll try to watch that while I'm smoking a cigarette or whatever. You know, and then I fall asleep on somebody's live, you know, or their video or whatever. Let all their ads play while I'm asleep. Let the whole playlist play. You know, get your $3 from YouTube or whatever. But yeah, I get it. it's hard. I don't have nearly as much time as I'd like to spend on, enjoying my life. I am politically involved. I go above and beyond myself. The I don't expect that the average person is going to be doing what I'm doing. That's an unrealistic expectation. I don't want to come across like that's what I'm trying to insinuate. But there is a gray area between the normal status quo of complete oblivion to what's going on in the world and complete avoidance of the conversation. Take her easy, clueless beekeeping. Good night. The oh shit, I forgot my thought there. There's a gray area between completely avoiding being involved in politics and plunging feet first over the waterfall into it all. There's a middle ground where the average person could, would, should, rights, responsibilities, all that fun stuff, should be informed, at least on the basic functionings of their government, who's involved. In bigger areas, a lot of this is going to be a little bit more difficult. There's more people involved. Obviously somewhere like Chicago and somewhere like LaPorte, Indiana, there's going to be a lot different approach. But the more people, like somewhere like Chicago, it's going to be easier to find like-minded individuals like yourself to play the buddy system. You know what I mean? It's more concentrated neighborhoods. It's still doable. It's just on a larger scale, and it's going to be a little more organizing type of behavior to accomplish, but it's still doable. But yeah, it's cannot reinforce this point enough. You, as the citizen, are supposed to be governing these people. We are supposed to be in charge, and at this point, it's pretty much like we're not, and it's because we've abandoned our responsibilities. We've gotten so focused on our rights to do nothing, to sit around and watch Netflix and sports and various other forms of entertainment, that we are no longer we don't have time to educate ourselves because we used it all being entertained. This real quick. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble on a little bit here. It's been a long day. I gotta start doing these earlier. About 40 minutes in, I start feeling like I'm about to take a nap here. But yeah, in this day in history, what would it be? About 105 years ago, one of my favorite people in history was nominated for the Supreme Court of the United States, and it's been uphill since then. The man's legacy speaks for itself. Like I said, I can't do it justice at all with this video. The stuff that I've touched on is but a fraction of his great work. If you can make some time to read some of the stuff that's in the description, this is just the beginning. It'll lead you to other stuff. You get to looking into, like I said, there's a whole university named after him. They got all kinds of cool stuff going on. And you can go on the Brandeis School of Law website. They've got an extensive biography. They've got a lot of his work on there. Harvard has massive amounts of his stuff on there. His right to privacy is in an 1890s Harvard Law Review. Anyway, if you can find the time, if you can make some time, check out his stuff. The duties of the office of private citizen cannot, under a republican form of government, be neglected without serious injury to the public. You are responsible to your neighbors, your family, your community, your kids' teachers, the public. You are responsible to the public. You're responsible to them, and that you need to educate yourself so that you and your neighbors and family and your community can have informed political discussions to where you can decide amongst yourselves how to mold and shape your local government. That's what all of this is for. That's what the First Amendment is for. That's why it's the first one, because it's the most important one. Because if you aren't there to say, hey, we need amendments, well, the government might just assume that you're like, MIA, and just remove the amendments. Because that's what's happened. That's literally what's happened. Is we've been watching Netflix and sitting around with our thumbs in our butts all this time, and the government has basically just assumed that we're like non-participatory and is slowly but surely removing your rights. You don't want to exercise your responsibilities? We'll just take away your rights. And by the time you know about it, it's too late. That's what's happened, That's why the attacks on your freedom of speech are recurring, because you're not there to fight them off. That's why your money's wasted, because you're not there to shame your government for it. Rights, responsibility. These things hand in hand. But anyway, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. This was a fun one. Thanks for hanging out, everyone, and listening. Thank you, Cindy, for modding here. Yeah. All you future watchers, thank you for watching, and hope you enjoyed. Yeah, I'll probably start doing some more of these. Maybe we'll do a this day in history like once a week kind of thing. Don't know if I could find someone as interesting with such a wealth of stuff for me to get into here every week, but maybe. There's a lot of really passionate First Amendment advocates out there. They don't all have to be from the late 1800s, early 1900s. Eric Brandt is a passionate First Amendment advocate. We can do a show on just about anyone. Yes, the interfaces between public and government. It's actually a business now. I mean, you could literally make a killing creating some sort of illusion, some sort of illusory interface that has the appearance of being a communicatory tool between yourself and the government, but they typically don't work. And the more you can make it look realistic without it actually being a realistic kind of tool for the citizen to use, the more you can probably charge for it. Scott, hi. Oh, I see. Yeah. Couldn't get off without some more stupid questions here. When do I go in the can? When do I have to use the restroom? I drank like half this water. I'll probably go after I wrap this up. Or do you mean when am I going to go do my 5 days in jail? They're so concerned about it, and they think I'm such a threat that I have basically like the next 18 months, I think, to do it. So whenever I feel like it, pretty much, over like the next year and a half or something, I can go and do my 5 days in jail, which will be non-existent at that time because obviously I'm about to get all this reversed, as I said. So anyway, yeah, you're focused on the wrong shit there, my man. I mean, that's the thing, and this is what I'm saying, is you gotta be educated and informed. If you're about to argue with me that this secret tribunal where, prosecutorial misconduct with the witnesses going on out in the hallway while they, refuse to let evidence that they submitted on the record already into the trial, like all these just, there's a whole slew of shit, dude. Like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Get off my page. Like, you guys are killing me. Like, oh, in America you have to have a public trial? Here, I'll prove it. Like, fucking Jesus. Like, the fact that this seems normal, yeah. Crazy. Just saw an interesting judge's statement on arguing against past case law because of today's cop safety situation. Robbins v. Illinois case number 19. Alright, I'll have to check that out, man. Thanks, Seb. Not familiar with that, but seems like a good read. Definitely an interesting description you got there. Oh, Lori, you can't say things like that. Don't you know that? That you can't... That's really scary. You're going to intimidate anyone that just read that. You can't just say that you're going to have somebody arrested or put in jail. That's intimidation. I don't know why the police do it if it's intimidation. But if I do it, it's intimidation. The city said that. Their reps are very clear that, they show up to public meetings and I show up to public meetings, and then, I quote the law, and I file a public records request, and, all these things are intimidation, man. You're hassling these people. You're bothering them. Like, you can't just say that you work for me and you're going to follow the law, or I'm going to hold you to it. Did you just threaten me? Like, yeah, it's crazy, man. But that's why it's, that's their card that they use, is they try to get you to, it's almost like they want you to feel like they're treating you like you're stupid so that you become upset with them and frustrated. And then when you get firm or loud with them, they can treat you like you're being aggressive. But yeah, that's the ploy usually. They've weaponized our collective stupidity as a society and used it against us, to where if you're the type of person who talks about politics, because nobody does that, you're abnormal. You get too involved in politics and people will literally tell you, don't you have something better to do with your life? Fuck no. Like, these kids are... I got kids, man. These people are making decisions that affect their future. What do you mean, do I have something better to do with my life? I live in this town. Like, I have to drive on these roads that you guys don't fix. Like, no, I don't have anything better to do with my life. Like, this is a priority to me. Like, yeah, radical ideas. Now, it's amazing, though, because all it takes is a little bit of time And you can go from having the New York Times call you a radical to having the New York Times ask you to protect your right to print the word radical. You know, history, isn't always what it seems. Things change over time. It's because we, the people, make that happen. And we do this with the foundations of our society. Exactly. It's your job description. Do your job or quit. They are public fiduciaries. That they look into public trust law and things of this nature. This is actually how Brandy got on the Supreme Court. I believe Woodrow Wilson appointed him as president, and one of the things that Woodrow Wilson wanted to do was he wanted to go after the banks with antitrust law, and basically, I'm talking completely break down the banks. And he saw Brandy as an ally on the Supreme Court to make that happen. Yeah, it's these governmental people. They actually do work for you. They're a trustee of your property and your public funds. They're a fiduciary to you. They are entrusted by you to do the right thing. And it's not just that they're not doing their jobs when they make mistakes. They're violating your trust as the public. That's how people need to start looking at this. You're not bothering these people. You've caught them stealing. You know what I mean? It's a little bit different. It's a little bit different than you bothering them. You know what I mean? When you want to know where all your money's gone. Why isn't my town better after I voted for you? This is your civic duty to find out why. To find out what they did with your money. It's your responsibility to find out what your agent is doing, because they speak for you. We govern by consent. You've consented to this. You've been out of the game, so they're playing it without you. Anyway, I'm gonna for real get off here now. I got a bunch of messages popping up. Your radical ideas are offensive. They are. I need to get some T-shirts for all these little trigger words. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. I gotta try to get to bed relatively early tonight. Thanks everyone for watching. Trying to get some more content going here soon. I know I've been taking it easy and not getting nearly as much up as probably had a good bit of you accustomed to. But I'm trying to get back in the habit of that. I was looking at some. Speaking of, before I wrap this up, some of you more tech savvy folks out there, I'm looking into sort of getting a little bit more of a formal studio together for these kind of things. Microphone, maybe a better web camera. So if you are familiar with any of this, if you have any knowledge, know-how, I'm not too familiar with brand names and all this stuff, but I'm looking into a USB broadcasting microphone, something, not relatively too expensive. Like to cut some costs where possible. Like I said, maybe a new webcam. So if you know some good deals, quality product, great reviews, whatever. Somebody who's a little more familiar with all this than I am. I'm not gonna lie, it's not my strong suit. Not big on technology. I've been using a smartphone pretty much to do most of this, and a basic Nikon camera for the longest time. And I've had a lot of people tell me I need to upgrade stuff, so I'm going to try to get that going a little bit. If you're one of the people that's going to constantly bitch about that, you can go ahead and hit the PayPal. Otherwise, you can be patient. Like I said, all this comes out of my personal pocket. And like I said, I'm doing the stay-at-home dad thing right now, so not as much of an income. We're trying to, be frugal and smart, especially in these difficult times. So give me some time, be patient. I'm trying to get some stuff together, get a little better quality here. Working on this podcast kind of idea, as well as a few other things, but trying to get it to where I can. Have it a little easier to sort of do an impromptu kind of jump right into a production with it all, not be using a bunch of handheld devices and whatnot. That way I can get to pumping out content a little more frequently. I like doing these little chats here anyway, but that's it. You guys, pro tip, do not violate terms of this dude's an idiot, man. Hire a lawyer. After trials, I should hire a lawyer. That's your advice. You know you're going in circles now, right? I'm gonna check these real quick and make sure I didn't miss anybody's comments real quick. And they do not want to fulfill the rigorous precedent. Yes, they are. Refusing the public records. Terrible fiduciary. Violated your trust. Hiding your own property from you. Yes. Terrible stuff. Anyway, I'm out of here. I gotta respond to a bunch of stuff. Night, everyone. Cindy, thank you. Wobbly, Jess, Lori, fuck off, Scott, Wobbly Boost. You guys all take her easy.